Hi, I'm Gary. Today I'm bringing you another Friday afternoon drive discussion on the power of prudence. For today's discussion, I wanted to talk a little bit about church security, and more specifically, the recent trend by a lot of individual parishioners or churches, after discussion, deciding to carry firearms into the sanctuary. And I'm not a big fan on weapons in the sanctuary, just because the vast majority of the people out there have never fired live rounds in the middle of a crowd, around people running, yelling, and screaming. Imagine for a second if you were in a sanctuary and someone ran in and suddenly started shooting. Chaos, people screaming, yelling, jumping up, running, bumping into you. How are you going to identify friend or foe? Can you shoot that accurately? Can you shoot on the move? Can you shoot when people are bumping into you and knocking you? And if you've never practiced that type of shooting, I don't think you should be carrying a weapon in a sanctuary. I was a Delta Force assaulter for a few years, and the level of training and accuracy that we had to have before we could even begin to start to shoot around each other and move was incredible. It was after many, many thousands of rounds. I would challenge anybody that thinks that they're qualified to take a weapon into a sanctuary or have a program that has that, to let's put those people on a range and see if they can fire 8-inch target, 25 yards, full magazine, no misses. That's just the first qualifier. Now let's see those people have to crawl, run, move, people yelling, screaming, being jostled, and then fire. Let's not even make it 25 yards. Let's make it a torso target, 15 yards, and you have to be able to distinguish weapon, no weapon, friendly, unfriendly. And you have to be able to shoot, with the targets that are like where it's a part of a good person superimposed, screening out part of the bad person target. So you have a very narrow margin for error. Now let me see those people that want to carry the weapon pass that test. Then you could start thinking about putting weapons, in my opinion, in the sanctuary. Another problem is, frankly, a year or so ago, I carried a weapon in a sanctuary a few times. But then I stopped when I started thinking it through more fully. I'm trained to go after a target. If the threat emerges close to me, I'm going to go for it, armed, unarmed, or armed with something other than a firearm. But if it's not right there with me immediately, I'm immediately scanning, looking for the secondary threat. Can you imagine a church where something starts happening in one area, somebody pops up in another area with a gun? Well, if I'm there, I'm going after that person. So whatever form of defense that we want to use in our churches, it has to be a plan. It has to be discussed. It has to be agreed upon. It has to be disseminated so other people know what's going on. There are a lot of well-intended people for all the right reasons right now that want to protect other people, and they're taking it upon themselves to carry weapons into the sanctuary. Again, as a former Delta Force assaulter, I don't feel that I'm qualified at this point to do that. And I don't think other people are. There are other measures that I teach to isolate the sanctuary and force an attack that's, if it's going to happen, to be initiated outside the sanctuary. I think the church has to have plans, and I believe carrying a weapon outside the sanctuary where there's a less group of packed people in there and less chance of accidentally hitting an unintended target, that's possible. But even that needs to be planned and coordinated. And if I'm going to have parishioners carry a weapon, I'm going to want quarterly or something refresher training that we hold. We all want to do something, and we all want to protect people, but we need to put a lot more thought into our plans to protect people and make sure that it's what we all want. And I guess the final point that I would urge people to consider when you are considering weapons in the sanctuary, again, there are other measures other than a firearm to deal with someone that is an active shooter. I'm for those, and always happy to talk to people about those techniques. But one of my motivations is the sanctuary is the sanctuary. That's where there's supposed to be a feeling of love and peace and brotherhood and welcoming. I know it's hard for me if I'm armed and I'm sitting in a sanctuary if I'm focused on my surroundings and watching for a threat, am I really in there doing what we go to sanctuary for, to worship God? I guess my take is no. And if we have X number of people in there just focused on security, even if they're going to attend a different service for their worship time and they're doing this as a duty, I think you have to balance it. When do you get to the point where there are so many people in the sanctuary that are focused on non-worshipful, defensive thoughts, that it starts detracting from the atmosphere of love that we want in a sanctuary? Hey, those are just some of the considerations that I would urge every church or congregation that's considering how to defend itself from attackers in the sanctuary to just have those things in mind. The good thing is that if you create plans and they are thought through carefully and disseminated so that everybody knows what the plans are, just by going through that process alone, the people that worship and visit your church will be much safer. So those are my thoughts on weapons inside a sanctuary. Thank you for tuning in, and if you'd like more information on securing churches or any other self-protection and security topics, please go to my website at GaryHarrington.net. Look me up on Facebook or search for my YouTube channel. Thanks.